Hey everybody, Glenn Hausman here. I'm with Anthony Melchiori, and today we're going to be having a conversation we probably should have been having all along, but are getting to it right now. Anthony, good to see you today.
Good to see you, my friend. And we're not live. So are you going to beep out all my curse words?
Wait, I'm not alive? What are you saying here? I'm actually going to put in more curse words.
Yeah. What we need to be talking about, we need to be talking about every single day. We should have been talking about it all along. Is we have to talk about race relations in this country for not only what's going on, but what's been happening all over the country for years and years, hundreds of years. And when you look, people say to me, the hospitality industry is very diverse. Well, yeah, you look at the C-suite, not so much. So we want to have that discussion. Mary Beth, what do you think?
All right, hold on. Let's introduce everybody.
Whoa.
We got to introduce everyone. So I know everybody knows Mary Beth Cutshall from Mara Capital and HVMG, but they might not be familiar with Hilda Delgado, the CFO of Viceroy Hotel Group, and Mr. Evans Charles, CEO and President of Frontier Development and Hospitality Group, an ownership and acquisitions company. All right, Anthony, now that we know who everybody is, you can ask Mary Beth a question.
Well, just be an operations guy. I'll ask Mary Beth. What do you think, Mary Beth?
Yeah, thanks for having us all. Thanks for inviting me. I think this is such an important conversation that we're having, and I agree with you wholeheartedly that this is something that we should have talked about a long time ago, and I think we're trying to. So it's really about how do we pivot and how do we have a conversation about the importance of the diversity and inclusion in hospitality. To your point, Anthony, when you look at the C-suite, there just is not enough representation of our associates in the industry or our guest profile of the folks that are coming and staying at our hotels. And so something that I'm personally committed to, and I know that Hilda and Evans are as well. And I'm excited to be here because I think the more that we talk about the opportunities we have to make a difference and create material change, the sooner we can make it happen.
That's right. So, Hilda, you're CFO of a major hotel company. That's pretty impressive. What's the situation like at your company in particular? I mean, you're a Mexican-American woman in the C-suite.
Yeah, no, look, I am actually quite fortunate because Viceroy is very diverse. Within our department heads, there is a blend of, we have an Asian American women, we have myself who's Mexican, someone from Africa, we have someone from Colombia. So I think from a representation from our end, we're very fortunate, and I think that just stems from the top. It's important for all of us in order for us to really represent and provide the best guest experience. We need to be representative of our customers and our guests. We are.
So Glenn, we were talking about. Sorry, Hilda, I didn't mean to interrupt you. We were talking about companies that have been on the show that didn't give me a job. Viceroy didn't give me a job when I applied for general manager years and years back. This is the third company in the last week. Yeah, I'm an Italian American. Maybe you need one in the C-suite.
I can't believe that so many companies have not given you a job.
Crazy,
that's unbelievable. Evan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I mean, we might have a position open for you.
All right.
Right. And remember, Hilda, maybe the CFO position after this. I know you were.
Well, according to Glenn, I'm just an operations guy. So just make sure you get me an operations.
Anthony, you are quite funny today. All right. So Evans, tell us a little bit about yourself. We haven't seen you out in the on the scene as much as other people, but you're out there, you're active, you're doing investments. So share a little bit about your organization.
Sure. Well, a little bit about me, just, Washingtonian, born and raised in Washington, D.C., come from humble beginnings, and the only way I was able to get to college was through an athletic scholarship. So through that experience, was able to come out with a graduate degree, and then got inspired by a landlord and started investing in small residential real estate while I was working for an educational publisher in corporate America. So over a 10-year span, executed a bunch of from small to larger real estate investments, and eventually got exposed to an organization called the National Alliance of African American Hotel Owners. And that exposure got me into the hospitality industry. So it's been about 9 years since I've been focused on hospitality investing. Since then, we've acquired and developed Hilton and Marriott properties across 5 states. Yes, so happy to be here. And
So let me ask you, how do you see the state of diversity in the hospitality industry?
in my space, we're almost not represented at all. I mean, if you talk about percentages, maybe we're a fraction of a percentage. And you look at ROJ, they're probably the largest minority, owned, the largest minority hotel owner in the industry or so. But from a standpoint of the C-suite ownership, we're very much so just underrepresented. And from a standpoint of a consumer, we're, as African Americans, we're very big consumers in the travel industry. So that's something that we've been cognizant of. This organization that I belong to have been trying to make a difference on the topic, but obviously not enough is happening, and we need to see more traction.
Now, Evan, is that because, like you just said, you were introduced to the real estate market, you were introduced to this by your landlord? Is that because people are being kept out, or is that because people are just don't know that this is an opportunity? I know I went in the military. I did not know that I can buy a hotel. I didn't know the real estate investment part of this business. And I was in operations for 25 years until I started getting educated and became a partner in a hotel and became a developer. But I didn't know. I was not educated in that I can do that. So is it a little bit of both? Is it discrimination, or is it just that the opportunities haven't been there? From your perspective.
I guess I could speak anecdotally. We don't have exposure. It's not as if I've seen people in the community that I grew up with who were hotel owners. So that's first and foremost. So if at any point, we do get exposure, then, how do we get into a business like this? It's access to capital. And what I've seen, a lot of the success that I've obtained has been through relationships that I've built. And even if you think about the term, when people say, they want to tap into family and friends to raise money, typically family and friends that we have don't have the money to be able to afford to invest in commercial real estate. So there's a ton of barriers that needs to be, overcome. And that's what I've had to experience, and it wasn't an easy path.
So tell me the first deal you did where you was like, wow, I got that done. And that wasn't easy, but I'm going to get another one done. Tell me about your first deal and then some of the challenges.
And I also add, how did you even discover coming into the hotel side of the universe?
So my first deal was a deal that I came out of pocket $1,000. I didn't have any money. I was fresh out of grad school. It was a $32,000 foreclosure that I purchased. I used a credit card to go buy materials, and then I recruited cheap labor in the neighborhood to go fix up, and sold it 6 months later and saw a $25,000 profit. That was my exposure into real estate. No formal education. I went out and bought books, and then I met a real estate agent who was an investor who mentored me. So, I repeated that many times over a 10-year period. And then the way I got into hotels was somebody told me about an African American that owned hotels, and I never can imagine that anybody looked like me even owned hotels. So at the time it was Don Peebles, and he had owned the Royal Palm in South Beach. So I was even more in awe. So I went out and purchased this book, and I got inspired. So for me, that was a person who looked like me, who owned hotels, and that was my inspiration. And that led me to go into a conference. And that conference is where I got exposure and decided to get into the business. So the first deal that I did was a small 70-room Holiday Inn Express. And, I had some equity because, like I said, I've been investing for over a 10-year period, but I didn't have the operations background. So I partnered with a second-generation hotelier, an Indian American guy who went to college with me. So he and I did the deal, and we both just put up the equity out of our own pocket, 50-50, but it was a small deal. It was a $3 million deal. So it wasn't like it was a ton of equity, but that was my exposure and how I got into this. Well, I guess, relatively speaking.
Right. I like that you're in a position to say that wasn't a ton of equity, relatively speaking, but I'm actually more struck by the comment that you made that there weren't people that looked like you, people that you could look up to, ones that you could follow in their footsteps. And I think that's really important. Do you sometimes maybe see yourself now as that one individual who can help and inspire others to get to where you are?
Absolutely. I mean, whenever I'm in, in my own community, and it's mentioned that I own a hotel, I mean, people's mouth just dropped, So it's just not something you're accustomed to seeing. So very much so, that's another important aspect to what I do, is wanting to be that inspiration and wanting to be, wanting to make a difference for others behind me who are coming up. So, because I know how instrumental it was for me in my growth. So very much so.
Now Hilda, when you're a CFO, you're in the C-suite, I would imagine you're really talented or you wouldn't be in that position. Tell me your challenges when whether being female of Mexican heritage, what kind of challenge have you got to get to that position? Have you been overlooked because of your background?
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely been a journey, and one that has not been as straight and smooth. There's been the twists, the turns. There's been the hidden ditches that I've fallen into and have struggled to pull myself out of. I kind of stumbled across finance and stumbled across hospitality. I think my real first foray into that was I had moved to the Cincinnati metro area and came across a company that at that time that was a very small public REIT called Eagle Hospitality, and just kind of started to learn more about the industry and more about the space. But I recall going to my very first NAREIT conference. It was for primarily investors and financiers, and I could count on one hand the number of females, and I can count the other hand the number of people of color. And so I knew right then that this would be a journey. And there's been absolutely times where, I've definitely felt that I've been overlooked. I've actually had someone blatantly tell me that they are not going to give me a certain position because I was a woman and because I was a minority. And so it's definitely been a struggle, but I think that it's how you interface with that or how you react to it. It's so easy to get angry about the situation, but anger is not going to help me move forward. And so as my journey has progressed, trying to stay positive and trying to learn from that, trying to continue to prepare myself for that for that next step was extremely critical. And I always knew that then I would have to work twice as hard in order for me to get that opportunity. I think there's a lot of times where, as a female, you almost have to check off every single box in order for you to be even considered, versus sometimes your male counterpart who may only have a quarter or maybe half of the qualifications that they're looking for, and so but yet they actually might have the opportunity for that versus yourself.
So has it been a bigger challenge being a woman or being a Mexican American woman?
I think for me, it's probably been more the female aspect. I'm very light skinned, and so most people don't even know that I'm Mexican. And so that has not necessarily come out as much. Although, like I said, I did have one situation where my ethnicity was an impediment. But I think for myself, it's really been the female. And I think, even more for myself, it was trying to break away from some of my bad habits that I had growing up. I also grew up very humbly, grew up in South Central, picked up some bad habits along the way, and trying to find a way to soften up my rough edges as I came into the corporate world was probably one of my biggest challenges, because it was just something that I didn't have experience with. I didn't have anyone to go to. So it was, kind of, it was bumpy along the way as I tried to manage that.
So talking about rough edges, can you help Glenn with that?
All right, funny guy.
I'm still working on it.
So, Mary Beth, I say this with all love. You've been in the hotel business a long time, right? So,
a long time.
Yeah. So, I really see you as a female pioneer in our business. We've had this discussion before about how we'd go to these financial conferences and women have traditionally been underrepresented. Now, of course, if you want to hear the full story of this, check out the Checking In with Anthony and Glenn we did last November. But it would be interesting to hear a little bit about what are some of the challenges that you face compared to the typical white male audience that we see at a lot of these events?
Yeah, so it's very similar to Hilda. I definitely think I've had to overcome obstacles, and you almost have to approach things as being as perfect as possible, which is impossible because we are all in a bit. We have our strengths and we have our weaknesses. But I have oftentimes felt a lot of pressure to deliver, and worked really hard for that, and had to make hard choices about what my priorities would be. And as a single mother, on top of being a businesswoman, to be able to succeed in business and give it my all and work really hard and continuously try to improve and evolve, as well as get more efficient at what I do and evolve as a leader. So I think I've been fortunate because a number of the people that I've worked with and for have been very like-minded. And I think in many ways have given me opportunities because they believed I could get something done, get things done. But I will say, I do think women are guilty, and I include myself with this, is that we have a tendency to move up the ladder and not relinquish our other responsibilities. Sometimes we get ahead by adding value. We all get ahead by adding value. But I think women especially are guilty at not relinquishing some of the other responsibilities as they move into the new role, and we just get more and more and more that we've got to take on, and it becomes very difficult. There's that. I think secondly, more women have responsibilities outside the home. I think there is a gender expectation that women work in the home and then they work in the office, and just think about that. Think about the times that women have those extra responsibilities. They can't go to that dinner. They can't go to that networking event. They have to run out and grab the cupcakes for the birthday party, whatever it might be, and take on a second job, a very significant, important second job. But it takes them out of that ability to network. And to Evan's point about seeing people that look like you that do deals, I think so often many deals get done and rinse and repeat. You have, especially if you're successful, if you put successful deals together, typically your investors want to, do more deals with you. And a lot of times you're oversubscribed. You don't have any space for more equity to come into the deal. Mm-hmm. So how do people who aren't already investors hear about these opportunities? And my gosh, how do diverse investors hear about these opportunities if they are not in a position to network with sponsors, and they're not in a position to network with other people that look like them that are investing in hospitality? So I think that is a challenge. And so for me, it was just kind of, just going for it and, doing what we're doing today. We are having a conversation that really hasn't been had, I think, on a platform for hospitality. And we're just kind of making it happen, and we're breaking through that. So that you have to do that, I think, as a woman to be successful.
So Evans, I got a question for you. For the last 10, 15 years or so, a lot of the major companies have had diversity initiatives, but we're having this conversation 10, 15 years later. What's going on?
A lot of the companies, you mean the brands?
I'm trying to keep it vague.
Basically, when it's 15 years ago, we were talking about this and nothing's really changed.
That's right.
So was it just,
thank you, Anthony.
Hey, look at us. Look, we're diverse. And then you turn around, you're like 15 years later and you're not diverse. So is it just a bunch of crap?
I don't want to describe it that way, but yes. So yes, you're right. There has been companies that have, talked about diversity initiatives. But when it comes to, things that have really moved the needle and been a true equalizer, it's nowhere remotely close to have been enough. I mean, the gap, from a standpoint of, let's just talk about just income, just amongst African Americans versus everyone else. I mean, it's just, the income gap is extremely wide. Like I talked about, just access to capital is one of the major impediments, for us. So, and it's just a few of us that figure out a way and get lucky to break through, like myself and like a few other folks or so. But for the most part, you know, providing true opportunity throughout, the larger portion of minority community, no, it has not happened to date.
So let me follow up on that question. It's difficult to get access to capital for a lot of people. It's difficult for me to get access to capital. Now you're in a position that you can potentially get access to capital. I can get access to capital now, but when I had challenges getting access to capital, it wasn't because of the color of my skin. It was because I just had difficulty. Now that you have potential opportunities for capital, does the color of your skin make a difference? Do you feel now, even though you've broken through, do you feel it's not so much getting access to capital, it's getting access to open-minded people that really believe that you can do anything anyone else can do? Or is it still challenging?
I mean, you're right. I mean, I think, access to capital could be challenging for all people. And I don't know. I can't, point to situations where I can say that, someone told me no because of the color of my skin. I mean, you don't know. I mean, a lot of times people, I'm hopeful people see green, in our industry, and that's what it's about. But I will tell you one thing, being an African-American in this space that I do understand is we don't get a second chance to make mistakes.
Oh.
So if you look at,
Fascinating.
If you look at like, and I'm a former football player. I'm going to use an analogy of just the NFL. Like if you look at like an African-American coach, you have an African-American coach that have a couple of losing seasons. That guy doesn't get another head coaching job.
Herb Edwards.
A white counterpart, he may get 5 other head coaching jobs, So I know for me, if I mess up investors' money, I'm done.
Right.
I was going to piggyback on that. With Amara Capital, we have.
If you tell us what Amara Capital is.
Sure. Yeah. So Amara Capital is a platform that I started about a year and a half ago, and ironically, Evans was one of the first people I called when I had the idea. Say, what do you think? Do you think this is crazy? And he was like, no, go for it, MD. I think it's needed, and I really appreciate his support and mentoring of that. But it really is it's a conduit to help investors, women and diverse investors, minorities invest in hospitality, real estate, get a chance to see some really great deals. So we've executed, but it's interesting. At the end of 19, lots of investors wanting to participate. I was just really having a hard time finding deals that I felt confident about, and it's exactly what Evan said. And part of it was I knew that with a diverse investment pool and myself as the managing principal in originating these deals and putting all of this together, I wouldn't have a second chance if it didn't work out well. And I felt very concerned about where we were in the cycle, that it was so frothy.
Right.
And prices were very expensive. And I've been in this business my whole life. This is all I've ever done is the hotel business, and I've done over $1 billion in hotel real estate work. And so I just realized I can't take that risk for my investors. I, especially as a woman, one of the very few that's originating and putting deals together, I can't fail. And so I waited and paused, and boy, am I thankful I did, because now's a great time and we're raising a lot of equity and capital to execute on deals and reviewing those deals right now. So I think it's true. I think what Hilda said and what Evan said, with minorities, whether it's racial or gender, we oftentimes have to excel at a very high performance level. And in some ways, those that are able to get to that place, I think it pushes us to be the best that we possibly can be and execute. But it does make the train a little bit more tricky.
Yeah, I do like that your spidey sense was tingling, so you decided not to get into some of the deals then, because now is going to be a great time for deals, and I think you're going to be able to give your investors a little bit more return than you would have prior. But so I guess we need to talk a little bit about being uncomfortable and talk about what we could really do to make change really happen. One of the things that I know is, like, we started this conversation. I don't know what to do? Am I doing the right thing? Am I not doing the right thing? And how do we even penetrate to the people that I'm noticing seem to be coming out of the woodwork in particular in the last week or two that seem completely closed off to thinking that this is even an issue? Hilda, maybe?
Yeah, on that point, I think, you're in Brooklyn, and so you see a lot of diversity, and you get a better understanding of it. I think there is just a lot of people who just have never heard stories or are in disbelief of the stories that they're hearing. And so I think part of what needs to happen is there needs to be more actual dialogue, but we're just so scared of talking about it. There just doesn't seem to be a safe space where we can have that dialogue. There's fear of saying the wrong thing or responding the wrong way, that unless we kind of come together and create that environment for that, you can't put the problems on the table to then come up with a solution.
Are you saying that both sides feel that way? The minority community and that traditional old white guy community might feel like he would say the wrong thing because a lot of times they don't know what to do because they don't even acknowledge the problem.
No, I think you do. Like from our end, sometimes when I've had someone approach me and try to touch the subject, it's gone through my head of why do you bother? You don't get it. It's almost like the first word that comes to mind is you just don't get it.
Right.
But I then myself have created the problem because I haven't given them the opportunity. I had to learn for me to educate them. I've dismissed them as immediately,
of course, but I mean, it's a lot of responsibility on everybody that you have to do all of that work just to get into a conversation that somebody like me could just walk into a room and not even have to think about, right? So there's all of this stuff that you're dealing with there. But so then how can we actually come together and have meaningful conversation that winds up with real effective change as opposed to these fits and starts? I mean, I don't want all these major companies that have diversity people, they are trying to do the right thing, but they haven't been able to get over the finish line. What are we missing?
So I think that there's been, by some people, some white people, a lack of understanding that there is still serious racial discrimination that's going on in the world today. Or that, when you hear the term, that white people are privileged, there are white folks that don't believe that, right? So I think, for me speaking from an African American, that you'll be amazed if I sat here and just told you all kinds of things that I experienced just throughout my life. But it's a function. It just comes with the territory. I get it. Other people that look like me gets it, but I never really sit down and have conversations with my white friends and just break all this stuff down.
Right.
So it starts with an understanding that there is an issue. Right. And if you have an understanding and if you're empathetic, we are the minority and we've been screaming that, things are unfair, but the majority has the power to make the difference. So until the majority says we understand what you're going through and we're going to speak up now, that's when change is going to happen, because we've been screaming and speaking, but it's been falling on deaf ears.
Well, I and that's a great point, because people have been talking about, well, we're going to have diversity and we're going to have a department about it. But do you feel it? You just said it. You said feel it. We don't feel it. We don't feel it to your level, because you can't. Because I don't come from your background. You don't come from my background. I can't. And now is the time. Now is the moment where we've got to stop thinking and start feeling. And I think, I've never walked in an elevator and somebody walked out because of my skin color. I've never tried to get a cab in New York City and somebody didn't pick me up because of my skin color. I never walked past somebody's car and they locked the doors because of my skin color. My friend, one of my African American friends told me that, and it literally stunned me. It stopped me in my tracks because I've heard it.
Right.
I've never felt it. And when he told me that, I felt it. And you're exactly right.
And that gets me that
enough of this, and we got to start feeling it.
Yeah. So Evans, you said understand. So I wonder. I'd like to think I understand, but do I understand? And can I really understand? And if I can't really understand, then how can we learn to empathize and appreciate the situation to make the change? I mean, that's a pretty loaded question, right?
Well,
I think that I was just going to jump in. I think listening isn't just hearing. I think it's listening. I think it's listening
Right.
from the heart. I think it's taking people at face value when they tell you their story, that they're not lying, that and recognize that we can't completely comprehend the story, because when my son walks out the door, I don't have to worry about him if he's wearing a hoodie. But my friend in Brooklyn, whose son is African American, she's petrified. And she has the talk every single day. And I think we just have to realize that, we've got to listen with our heart. And when people share their stories are true. They're truth. And we can't deny that anymore.
Right.
It's interesting. And Evan, you answer in a second. I just stepped up for a second because my daughter was going with a boy, and we said, wear your mask, make sure you're social distancing, wear your mask, right? I never had to think that way before. If I'm an African-American father, I'm saying, hey, take your hoodie down, be careful, don't go over there. Like this moment is going to give me a little understanding of, I have a 20-year-old. I shouldn't tell her to have to put a mask on. I shouldn't tell her the social distance. I shouldn't, an African-American mother shouldn't have to tell their child, hey, take your hoodie off. And so if this is a moment that you can understand, maybe this is a little bit of again, I can never understand anybody else because I'm not no one else, but to have empathy. And again, it's enough talk, man. It's enough diversity meetings. Just everybody shows up and let's just do the right thing. It's a lot. It's harder said than done. And we need people like you, Evans, to really help, not only help us, but to really say, yeah, it is harder. But so what? Let's not give up. Evans,
that's also an awful lot of responsibility on you guys, right, Evans?
And that's what I'm saying. So even take today's circumstance with the George Floyd situation. This is the first time I'm seeing, almost unanimously, everybody believes that police officer was wrong, right? And now people are protesting all over the world, from all different ethnic backgrounds. This is, for us African Americans, what happened to George Floyd. That happens on a regular basis. And before cell phones came out with cameras, what about in the 80s, in the 90s, when I was growing up? That stuff was happening, but no one was recording it. And when it was our word against a police officer, the police officer always, was presumed innocent. We were always presumed to be, not telling the truth. So this has been happening for decades and decades and decades. And I'm just so relieved and hopeful that we can just finally be heard and understand that this has been a problem and it's not new. It's been going on for decades.
If it wasn't filmed, they would have just said he was resisting arrest and,
right.
He tried to pull a top gun or something. I think I think what got everybody's attention was that it was so blatant that you saw a video. This gentleman was videotaping you and you still didn't stop. So that is telling you that it is within the fiber of the police department. It's in the fiber of the people around him that, hey, they're shooting. Don't worry about it. They're putting us on video. We'll get away with it. Like that, I think, is what was striking to everyone. Again, I grew up in New York City in the 80s and the 70s and stuff. So it wasn't so striking to me because I saw it firsthand. I didn't experience it, but I saw it. And it was just absolutely, to me, the moment where it's like he was so comfortable in doing it and sitting there, like parading it. It was. I think that was just gut wrenching, and everyone finally said, "Okay, not only we see it, we feel it."
No, I haven't heard anyone else point that out, and I thought about that. He did not care that he was being recorded because
not at all.
It was in his DNA and his culture. That's just what they do, and there is no accountability. There hasn't been historically.
Systemic, and it was just built in, and it's like, because you're gonna do something. Like if you have parents. And you have parents that are going to discipline you, you're probably not going to do some things. And then kids that don't get disciplined are probably going to do it, right? He wasn't disciplined. So he wasn't fired. He wasn't put in jail. He's done that before. He wasn't told. He wasn't made an example of. And in that department, it was obvious that he wasn't going to be made an example of because the other 2 or 3 men walked past it. It was, and so to your point, Evans, that does give us all hope because we've been through this before. We've seen demonstrations. We've said we have to do better. We've seen it. We've heard it. I mean, I'm 55 years old and I've seen many times that this has happened. This was so blatant. And so even the people that don't feel the African American community, even the people that don't really care, you cannot walk away from this. And this might be the moment.
Yeah. Just to piggyback off of what Evan said, so I grew up during the South Central, riots, and so I saw all of it take place, and I remember hearing a lot of people, even though the video was out there, they still didn't believe it sometimes. I couldn't understand why, because there was a video out there, and so this movement that you see now, like Evan said, I mean, this movement has been going on for a very, very long time. I do think that what has changed now more than anything is social media. Your smartphones that do have cameras, that do have video, because then going back to my earlier point of, sometimes you'd say something and people didn't believe it. And so it was just kind of hard to then have a conversation because you just felt like you were just wasting your breath. But now the reality is that you can actually record it. There is now proof. No one can sit there and say, this isn't happening. I don't believe you. You're exaggerating, because you have it there. You have proof. You now have your voice can be a lot more amplified now than where it was before when it was getting drowned.
But but we've seen it videotaped before. We've seen pictures before. It took a completely deranged lunatic of an individual to sit there and think that he was going to get away with this for people in my community to finally say, oh, we believe it. Really? It took that for you to finally decide that it's not right? That white and black, it's different in this country. It took that video for us to stop paying attention. And it's so if I am frustrated and I feel it, I could not imagine what it feels like to be Evans or to grow up and feel that constantly. It becomes part of you. Like you don't even think about it anymore. It's systematic in the way you react because you're an African American.
So that's what I was saying. So it starts with understanding the problem. Right. And if the problem, and if you understand and you empathize, and then now the conversation is, I think that's when we can have a real conversation on what do we do, is when everybody understands and agrees that there's a problem. And I don't know if the consensus or the majority of America truly believe that, there's been a real problem amongst, the minority.
So what do you say to a young African American man or girl that this isn't going away tomorrow? This isn't changing in the next 6 months. It'll get better. Hopefully it's getting better and better, but it's not going to change. And they want to go in the hotel business. They want to go in the real estate business. What do you say to that person? Because it's probably a lot different than what I would say to a white girl or a white boy going into this. What would you say to them?
The way Mary Beth said it earlier, to be honest with you, we have to be better than our white counterparts. We have to be the best of the best in order for us to get through to make it, right? So
what happens when you get angry and you get pissed off and you get tired of having to be better just to get the same thing? How do you overcome that?
A lot of us don't. That's why there's so few of us in these positions. Look, maybe I was blessed. Maybe I was blessed with an abnormal sense of ambition, where losing just was not an option for me, and I didn't care how hard I had to work, and I would get that done. But that's not normal. Everybody doesn't have that same level of drive and ambition, and I wouldn't expect that upon everyone. So I'm going
to challenge you there for a second, because I agree and disagree with what you just said. There are plenty of people that have your ambition and your drive, but the obstacle in the hill is too big. It's just too much. It's like I've had challenges. We've all had challenges, but your hill is just that much bigger. So there are things that you have done. It's just not your drive. It's just not your passion. It's just not that. It's more than that. Who is your go-to? What was the corner you turned? What was your reflection? What was the moment where it's like, because drive and ambition, I'll find 10 African Americans or 10 white people that have just as much, if not more ambition than you, and they can't get over the hill. So you have something that is different. And what is it that people can transfer that or learn from?
Let me tell you something. I mean, look, I'm a spiritual guy, and I believe that, you know, that God, you know, made a difference in my life. But there was I had so many opportunities to go in a completely different direction and have been a statistic like this close growing up. I grew up in DC during the height of the crack epidemic when it was deemed murder capital.
I would say, Evans, I went to the University of Maryland in the late 80s and early 90s. And when my friends and I would drive down from University of Maryland down to the Washington Mall, we would see arrest after arrest after arrest, no matter what time of day. It was horrific. I don't know how you managed to come out of an environment like that.
Right. So that was something where when I turned 21, I remember thanking God that I was still alive. That's how much death.
Wow.
You know, so when you talk about what happened for me, I didn't have the money to get through college. I was a good student. It wasn't as if I didn't have an academic scholarship. You know what I had? I had an athletic ability. And I said to myself that I'm going to utilize this athletic skill to find a way to get a scholarship in order for me to get out of this environment. So it was by me just capitalizing on one thing to get me out. But if that don't happen, I'm not here. Right. You know, so it wasn't as if, you know, I'm that, I don't know, you know, yeah, I just seized on the very, very, very limited opportunities that came my way. I didn't have.
And I think that was what I was looking for. You can have your ambition, you can have your want, all you want, but you got to take the moment. You know, in the book I'm writing, I talk about a chapter of moments. There's a moment. And sometimes those moments, the difference between life and death, sometimes, and you took that moment. And that's kind of what I have to do, what you have to do, what other people have to do is train people to don't like ignore that moment. Don't think that moment is going to come back 17 times because it won't. And you took it.
Yeah. Hilda, where do you find that inner strength to continue when the odds seem against you?
You know what, I think, you know, my dad is quite a character, and he had quite of a heartbreaking upbringing, and he was a very positive person. And I think the one takeaway that I got from him was, you know what, when you fall down, you just pick yourself back up. You just got to get back up. There's laying down is just not even an option. And so regardless of the challenges that I would face, just felt like I needed to get back up, brush myself off, and keep going. But there's no doubt that sometimes, you know, when you get hit hard and you lay there and you start contemplating, you know, why don't I just stay here? Does it make any sense? And you do all that, but you know, it's about getting back up. And I agree with you. There are those defining moments. And sometimes though, when you have that defining moment and you seize it, it's when you realize there was something good that came out of it. And you almost have to hold on to it and realize that you will have another one like that cannot be the last one that you'll have. And for me, one of those defining moments was almost, you know, what do I do after high school? At that point, I was hearing, you know, again, similar to the statistic, oh, Hilda, why are you trying so hard? All you're going to end up is just pregnant and barefoot, just like every other Mexican. Surprisingly, I think I had more negative commentary from my own community and my own people than I did from others. I mean, growing up, I mean, most people don't realize that I'm Mexican, but yet it was my own community that was the one calling me the wetback, the one calling me a dirty beaner. What do you think you're better than us? You're a sellout. And so it's trying to fight through that and say, you know what, that there has to be more. And for me, I decided to go away to school. The question was, do I stay home? Do I live at home and, you know, just continue to hang out with my current friends and do the same thing? Or do I go away? And for me, that decision to go away, to leave my family that I was extremely close with, my friends I was extremely close with, was critical. because it what it did is it exposed me, and I think that is one of the areas I think we need to do more of. It's that exposure that there is something else out there, that there is something more, because when you're in your neighborhoods, especially if you're in a low income neighborhood, it's hard to see anything else than what you're around.
So that's, so my follow-up question to that is, so you've made it, you've made some changes, you fought really hard, but now you're here, right? Do you have to now fight, Evans, for your part of the deal more? Hilda, do you have to fight more for an increase, and so you're on the same level, same salary as a male? Evans, have you been in a position where, because you felt the color of your skin, like they're not taking you seriously, so your part of the deal isn't as big as somebody else's?
What I have experienced, that was related to, I believe the color of my skin was going to trying to raise money from a capital partner, and they had partnered with an African American before me that didn't go so well. So therefore, I was grouped, with we've been. They didn't say this to me, but someone else had told me that they've done that one time and it didn't work out. So, and I had nothing to do with that person. We just share the same skin complexion. So.
Did you eventually get the deal, or no? The deal went away?
No, I did not get that deal. No.
Wow.
No.
All right. So obviously we understand there's a problem, and there are a good group of people that want to figure out what to do. Anthony wants to help. I want to be able to help. What can we actually do? And how can we break through to the people that really can't hear the message?
If I'm going to be so bold, I'm going to take that first, and I know exactly what to do. I'm going to do exactly what I've been doing every single day of my life, and I'm going to step up and do whatever I can to help whoever I can. And I think that is the problem, that people don't have the courage to do what's right. And to that point, I don't have as much courage as maybe I should have had. So I would like to hear your answers. I'm sorry, Glenn. I didn't interrupt you.
You didn't interrupt me. You interrupted our guests. Just kidding. Okay. Who wants to take that? Mary Beth, maybe you want to do that?
Yeah, I think from an organizational perspective, for those that have platforms like HVMG, we have 47 hotels and a handful under construction right now. We obviously have scale and development programs and recruitment programs. For us, it's about getting better at what we do. We've been super with gender diversity, and this has made us realize we can be better with racial diversity. It wasn't that we didn't care. It's just it's that thing that we just didn't know. We didn't know how big of a problem it was. So I think for us, it's about doubling down on that. But for organizations, taking a look at your recruitment process, taking a look at making sure there is a pipeline of minority candidates, also promoting those individuals that are currently in the organization, giving them opportunities to develop, to be mentored, to train, finding ways to help people get exposure to areas that they're interested in, and perhaps go out of your way to have a conversation. Take someone out to lunch that doesn't look like you, that isn't from your town or your community, and get to know them and find out what their path is like, find out what their experience is like, and approach it with some compassion.
Yeah, absolutely. Hilda, how do you see this?
I think it's there's a very personal aspect to all of this, and I think that Anthony, you have 3 girls, correct?
Yes.
And it's starting sometimes with them, teaching them, hey, you need to fight for yourself. You need to believe in yourself and push forward. It's teaching your sons, for those that have sons, that, hey, you need to treat women equally. You need to bring to the table what they're bringing to the table, or so forth. I think it's having those conversations sometimes within our own family units and our own friends that can start some of that change. Because I do think that change has to start sometimes just within our own group before you really kind of tackle the bigger aspects. But I do think, just as an industry, if there is a way for us to do more, again, to kind of provide more exposure, to have more minorities or more women come to some of our conferences, to sponsor that, to maybe work with high schools and give them that exposure early on, so that they know that there is a path out there that they can actually explore. again, when I was growing up, I didn't know there was any of these. I didn't know about any of these careers that are now available because I just had so limited exposure. And so if there is something that we can do to get in front of the high schools or the junior highs or just someone to really kind of build that, I think would be, you know, a good start as well.
Yeah, that's a great idea getting to the high schools. But MB, are you going down to the property level and helping people say, hey, you don't just have to be on the property level. You could be an executive too one day.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think that's something you need to look at. I'm part of the Castell Project, which is a nonprofit organization that is helping high potential women, and it's all it's called multiracial. Develop and learn core competencies to expand their careers. And I think the more that we become more aware of making sure that even like for Castell, our cohort is racially diverse. I think that's one part. Castell also has College at Castell, where now we have part of the platform going into colleges and helping connect with young women in university and hotel schools, and helping them understand all the different job possibilities that Hilda's talking about. I think it's just, really thinking about how do we have those conversations with other people that don't look like us, and making a conscious effort to do that.
Right. I like that what you're saying, a conscious effort to do that. I could say for me, I probably haven't been making a conscious effort. You know, I've just been living my life and not even thinking about it. But I'm definitely going to learn from this conversation to try to work a little bit harder in that, to learn a little bit more and try to help others maybe find a pathway through our business. Anthony?
Evans, I want to hear from you, your perspective on that.
I have a comment. How can we help become an advocate, you know, for this cause, like listening to Hilda, listening to me. We didn't grow up, or we don't pick our parents. We don't pick the environment that we're born into and we're raised into. We're not starting at the same starting line as everyone else. If you want to utilize a race as as an analogy, or Anthony, let's just say we're playing poker. You're starting with pocket jacks. I'm starting with 6-2 offsuit. So I'm starting off with a bad hand. And, how can we create any form of a equalizer to help us at least close that gap a little bit more? So, is it okay to put some programs in place that may give some minorities an advantage to close the gap? I know sometimes white folks feel as though, why should someone else get an advantage over me?
Right.
Well, we're starting so far behind everyone else.
Right.
So encourage the brands, the lenders, the people in our industry to create programs to try to create some equalizers to create more opportunities.
I'll tell you a story. I had a young lady who worked with me on my show, Hotel Impossible, African-American young lady. And she comes into my trailer one day, and we're really close. And she comes in, she's talking to me, and she goes, my mother is coming to set today. And I said, oh my God, I can't wait to meet her, whatever. She goes, but how much do you love me? I said, I completely love you. She goes, but you're going to love my mother more. And I was like, what do you mean you're going to love your mother more? It's like, yeah, because I was in the Air Force. She goes, she was the first African-American female 1-star general.
Whoa.
I started to cry because I was like, yes, I'm going to love her more. So she comes into my trailer, and I say to her, and she's just passed away, unfortunately, a couple of years ago. And I said to her, I said, I'm going to do a interview show about outliers, and I want to kind of interview you a little bit. I'll interview you on the show, but I want to talk to you. And I said to her, I said, when they pinned, and again, being a military guy, I don't care if you're white, black, I don't care what you are, being a general is everything. And and this is in the 70s, she became a 1-star female African-American general in the Air Force. And I said to her, I said, General, when they pinned that star on, were you the first African-American female general, or you a general? And I won't use the word she used, but she said, Anthony, I was born an effing general. And I was just like, and there you go. And I literally, one of the most inspiring moments of my life. And I've met a lot of celebrities and a lot of powerful people. I remember being at the Plaza Hotel, and Colin Powell was thinking about running for president. And I ran up there. He needed his dry cleaning. I ran up there, and I was a manager. You know, there's people that do that, but I wanted to meet him. I've never asked anybody for an autograph before in my entire life to this day. And I asked him for an autograph. And I go downstairs, and someone said, he's going to be, you know, you're going to vote for him because he's going to be the first African-American president. I said, he was a 4-star general, man. He was a 4-star general from the Bronx. Like, if I could have been his chief of staff, I'd be his chief of staff. Oh, and he happens to be an African-American. That's what we have to get to. We have to base people based on their accomplishments. And by the way, he's African-American.
Right.
And not, oh, he's African-American, so he's going to become president. It's like he was a 4-star general. 1% of people that join the military are 4-star generals.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. I mean, I think it's even actually higher than that. I think it's even. So right now in I think all of the military, there's 43 4-star generals. And there's only one female right now. There were 7, now there's 1. And the first chief of a military organization, a 4-star general, just became in charge of Space Force yesterday or 2 days ago. First 4-star general ever in charge of one of our military branches. Again, is he African-American? He's a 4-star general. What happens to be African-American? We get to that, and then we do better. The question I'd like to end on, if I can, Glenn, is talk to me as an 18-year-old coming into the business, coming into college. Again, Evans, I want to start with you. We talked about your ambition. We talked about you don't want to lose. And again, I understand that, and I feel the same way. But I haven't had the extra challenges that you've had. I've had my own challenges, but I haven't had those challenges. Those that are systemic, those that are systematic, those that are built into our system. So what do you say to someone that looks like you trying to come into your position and do maybe doesn't have your football and your athletic mindset? What do you say to them?
Oh, somebody.
An easy question, right?
I'm sorry?
It's an easy question, right?
No, I mean, I'm just trying to think if I can, phrase it any different than what I've said already. But for the most part, it's having faith, it's having confidence, it's staying the course, and yes, odds are stacked against you or so. But I think every time you overcome those, some aspects of those odds, it actually makes you stronger. So to be honest with you, the more of the inequalities that I overcame, the more confident and stronger that it made me. So when it came time for me to come out here and compete with whoever, I felt like there was no stopping me because most people have not gone through what I've gone through. So I would just try to change that into a positive and grow from it and get stronger from it.
And because you have to be better, you are better than other people in a similar circumstance. Excellent. Hilda, how about yourself?
I would say it's a matter of refocusing your energy. Again, don't let that anger consume you. Anger, it sucks up so much energy, and you need all that energy to just work, prepare yourself, educate yourself, go online. There's just so much material online now that's free that I wish I had when I was younger. It's capitalize on that. And the other, I think, is just meet different people. Just meet other people. Don't stay with the same people. Otherwise, it's hard to get a different perspective.
Great. MB?
So to quote Winston Churchill, I'm going to read this: never give in, never, 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 in nothing, great or small, large or petty. Never give in except to convictions of honor and good sense. Never yield to force, never yield to the apparently overwhelming might of the enemy. And today the enemy is racism. And so never give in. Don't let anyone stop you because you look different. You came from a different place. Use the advice that Hilda's giving and Evans is giving, and just never give in and keep going.
Beautiful. That's a great sentiment.
Well said. Well, thank you all for being here. And I think this is an important conversation. And I think it's a conversation I want to have, again. You're all invited back. And thank you so much for taking the time and the energy and to sharing your thoughts. And, one step at a time. And again, thank you very much.
Great.
Thanks
Yeah.
for having us.
Thank you all for being here. This is really a really special conversation. All of you that are still watching this conversation, it's really important issue. Share this on social media. Let people know what you're going to do to be able to help out there. And remember, if we all work on it together, we could all not just we could all feel equal. Yeah.
I want to live to the day where you don't have to say this is a special conversation.
Yeah.
I want to live to the day where you say, try to help us get better. I want to live to see that day that is not something that we have to actually say. And when I was, coming out of the military, and I said to my brother Angelo, I said there was some racial tension in the neighborhood. I said, there's no racial tension anymore, because I was in the military for 5 years. I didn't see it. Again, I was an African American in the military, so I don't know if they felt it, but it was like, man, we got to take that hill. We all got to take that hill. So when I came out, I really thought it really got almost gone. I really believed it, because for 5 years, I didn't see it. I didn't feel it. And it was never, it was amazing. So I want to live to the day where I don't have to hear Glenn Hausman say, tell us how we can do better. So again, thank you, everyone.
Right. Thank you all. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.